Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we are demoing the latest features in Artnet to Twinkly versions 3.14, 3.15, and 3.151. These updates bring powerful new protocol support, smarter UI tools, and better integration with Xlights, Lightorama, etc. 3.151 is the current latest version, and 3.15 has a couple of bugs related to the exporter and a couple other small things. Nothing that you can't work around, but you should update when you get a chance. Let's dive in. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is go over your connection in Xlight so you can make sure you have everything set up correctly. So I have protocol Artnet, starting universe 1, bytes per universe 510. So now in Xlights, in controllers, same IP address. I have, I got to stop output. Channels per universe 510. And the universe range is 114, so that should also match Artnet to Twinkly's. So let's close this window. I've been receiving universes ranges 1 to 114. And all right, so it says that I need 1 to 102. So apparently I've got my universe range too large in Xlights. So let's just verify that by looking at my channels in my models. Okay, my largest model is, that is 6.5, sorry, that's not a Twinkly. 51986 is my largest Twinkly model. So let's calc that out. 51986 divided by 510 equals. So that's 101.9, so that rounds up. So I actually do just need 102 universes. So I'll fix that in a little bit. So let's go ahead and just go ahead and adjust that. All right. You always got to make sure you hit save on these things. All right. So anyway, verify your IP address, your channel range, and in your models, make sure that your model numbers match. So I'm using Twinkly Megatree, for example, 1 to 4,500. So if I look in my program, Megatree 1 to 4,500. I will explain this later. It's a new feature. And then double check all your models that way. All right. So now on to the new features. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go into controllers. I'm going to flip this to DDP. And you will see that it now has me listed with a max channel of 52020. I look in my layout. That is it's rounding it off to the nearest universe, but that is the next universe range. And actually I can adjust that. So I can set that if I want to 51986. But I don't know if it'll actually 51986. All right. And then channels for packets 1400. This protocol not only is only sending 180 per packet, but the packets themselves hold a lot more data. So let's save that. Although that let it was unnecessary. So let's go in here, set it to DDP, save. The program will restart. And then I select Mega Tree again, hit receive, live preview, and then let's go into X-Lights, click it so it renders it, and then live output. And there you go. We are now receiving DDP. It is that easy, that quick. All right. So the next thing that I'm going to demonstrate is that I've modified this button. It now shows you what you're going to receive. So if I go over here and change this back to Artnet or even E131 and save, now it says E131. However, for this demo, we're going to leave it as DDP. In 3.414, I added a new feature to the model editor. So we're going to look at that. Let me pick a garage curtain. Go into Layout Tools, selected node. Now you'll see we have X and Y coordinates. So see how this light is below the other? Well, now I can just go in here and say, and move it. I can click at that one and see it's supposed to be at 16, then click on that one, move that one to 16, set. Now they're the same alignment. So I can do the same here, select Y, 16. It's for model cleanup. And remember, you don't have to commit these to Twinkly, but any edit you do here will export when you export. Let's say your mapping got really screwy like it did to me, and it reversed completely some of your lines. So you could say, I'll do one because it's the easiest. One is at 0.16, and the bottom of the strand is here. So it's 13 and 325. I can actually make this one 16. And then I can go back to 1, make that one 325, set that one. I got to select them first. So select 1, select 25, and then toggle select. Now I can go into Tools, Align between selections, and now you'll see that 1 and so on is now reversed. So, and of course, if you don't want to do that, you can Control Z and undo it. Anyway, that's how you do that. So let's talk about the licensing change I made. In 3.14, I made a change so that if you have one Pro device online, you can use it with this program. That was to cut down on me having to issue temp licenses to everybody. Although I still will do that if you have a ton of devices already set up and it's not yours, you're an installer, and you can't just like shut certain devices off. I can still issue a temp key for that, but for you to test that the program works with you, you can have one Pro device online and test with one device and then buy a license for Pro and you can get the others working. There's also a modification on the exporter here. You will see, actually, let me show you something else first. There is a default export type here that you can pick. And for the sake of argument, I'm going to pick Lightorama, which we will discuss later. Click Save. And now when I go into Layout Tools, selected Node, Export, you will see that it's now picked that as its export type. But you can still change it back. Also, I have changed the max pixels per chunk to 750. You can now test, and that's as it always was. And of course, compression and all that stuff. But when you export, this is a difference. You would have gotten two save screens, but they look identical. Now it appends the string number to it. So I can save this one, and then I'll say garage curtains 2, and save that one. So when I go into X lights, let's go into the layout. I can import that, and it's garage curtains 1 open. My mouse is really bad about this, but here we go. So there's one of my garage doors. But of course, since they're curtains and in line properly, you can just do a normal grid model like I did here. But in any case, that's how you can split one model into two pieces. Because as you can see, it's two pieces already. So I just split it down the middle. But it's also used for when you can't get this width and height in the bounds that are required for that model type. So for example, CamSys Max is 1024 by 1024. Lightorama has a larger one. It's 2000 by 2000. And also you'll see this toggles smartly now. And these model types that don't support 3D, the 3D controls are now removed. First, I want to talk about the channel display. So the first thing you'll see is your channel numbers. See that? 706. They're now displayed next to your file name. So if I'm in like X lights, for example, and I'm comparing stuff like this, I can, check my models a lot easier. And you'll notice this is smaller. Well, there's a reason for that too. If you go in here and you change this to show universe channel instead of channel, you click save, and now you'll see that your displays are all in universe channel format. So for example, Megatree 1 to 9420. So there's something you should know about though. This, unlike the channel display, will offset based on the starting universe. So if I save that, now when I look at my Megatree, you can see it starts at universe 0, channel 1. So if you want this program to start on a specific universe, you will want to configure that first before you assign your channels. Otherwise, you'll throw your channels off. So let's put that back at 1. And by the way, it can be any number. It could be 50 if you want it. But I'm going to keep it at 1. Although WLED expects it to be 0, so just be aware of that. Okay. Something else. There's another change here. So let's say I have went into my garage curtain and I have set something. And I'm like, yay, I'm done. And I click something else. Ooh, it noticed that I did not save. I've made this mistake I don't know how many times where I expected enter to work. But no, I don't want to save. These devices are actually not being used currently. That's why there's no save channels to them. But as you can see, no save channels leaves it blank. When I watch this, watch this number. I'll hit save. It's immediate. Update. You can actually do that while you're streaming, and it'll work. All right. More stuff to look at is Lightorama export support. Okay, so we're going to start by exporting two X-Lights models that will be broken when we import X-Light models into Lightorama. Let's start with my columns. This is 1,000 lights, 250 per column. So if I go into export, and then I say, let's see, export X-Lights model 2D, and hit export. First I test it. Columns, save. And of course I've done this before. So now let's close this, and let's go in and export whole house front right, which is 1500 lights. Select a node, export, test, no problems. Make sure I max lights. Export. All right. All right. So now I'm in Lightorama, where you add models to your preview. So this is where we're going to demonstrate the problems with the X models importer. So I'm going to pick an X-Lights model file, and I'm going to pick the one for my columns first. Open. Says it's successful. Now let's look at it. Says it's using numbers 1 to 1,000. That's the first problem. I'll explain that in a minute. Now I have to tell it that it's RGBW and WRGB is the type. It'll detect RGB properly, but not RGBW for some reason. I think it's an oversight in their design. Then I come over here and I say it's DMX. All right. So you'll see it goes from start universe 1 to universe 8 in channel 412. Well, that's not correct. And the reason it's not correct is the 1,000th light is falling on a boundary that Lightorama does not respect, which is numbers evenly divisible by 1,000. So you can go in and change your start universe. And I could say that's, I don't know, something correct for me, which would be, let me close this, 9,421. Let's put that to 9. Put this to 421. And you'll see that it says in channel 320, in universe 17,320. Now, if you look at here, that's 20 channels less than I'm expecting. So, and I actually don't even know why it's off that far, but it's cutting it off on the 999th. Well, we don't want that, because if you don't get your last channel, you don't get transmitted. Now let me show you what happens if you import something larger than that. So let's import my side of house, front of house right. Successfully imported, allegedly. You look at it, it actually picked RGB for this one, and it knows it's pixels, but it still doesn't know it's DMX. And now we don't have the problem where, by the way, you could save the other one. I should show you that in a second. It goes from, let me set the correct start channel on this. House front right would be 78,417. Let me go ahead and dock that over here so I can still see it. There it goes. And then we will pick whatever. I'll do it manually. And put this over here. This. Okay, now I can see. Although I can't see the light placement. So I'm going to put the start channel 78,417. And that puts my end at 87,305. Well, that's 21 channels less than it should be. And it doesn't really make sense to me why it's losing so many. So it must be skipping some of them additionally to this. But it shows I'm using all numbers from 1 to 1500. No number repeats. So keep that in mind. It's not even going to the correct end channel, and it's just wrong. So now let me delete this. Delete columns. And now I've already got a columns exported as a prop file that I exported. So let's look at that. Now that says it starts at 9.421. It's everything is filled in for you. Now let's look at customized light placement. Oh, look, it skipped 1,000. That's why everything's working. So I should, when I look at my program, see those numbers. This is columns, 9.421 to 17.340. There you go. You have your right channel range. So let's save that and let's import the other one, which is a RGB one. So first we're going to generate it. So let's go to house front right, export, selected node, and yeah, I just changed this around. Export, Lightorama, export. Save as house front right, LPE prop. Yes, I do. Just to show you walking through that. Let's get this out of the way so it doesn't obfuscate the view. Add house front right. Now let's compare those. Close this, close this. All right. So that should be 78,417 through 87,326, and that matches. So when you use this Lightorama export, not only is it going to pick the correct type for you, it's going to pick the correct channel order, it's going to pick the correct max universe size, and it's going to pick DMX for you, and it's going to put in your channel range information and take into account the stupidity where they can't have 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 in their numbers used. So that's all automatic. Okay, there is just one more thing that I want to talk about. I have also modified the Artnet to Twinkly frame limiter. I made some changes to the way that is set up. So we have whole house front. That actually has it enabled. Okay. Let's look at Megatree. Megatree, FPS 35. For 5 sickles. Default is 35. But you can set it to arbitrary numbers. So for example, I'm going to go in here to my square, which runs like absolute dog poop when you're streaming to it. It allegedly runs at 40 FPS, but it jerks and flickers all over the place. So I'm going to set it to a lower number of 20. Maybe even 15. It's real bad. And all I'm showing is scrolling channel numbers. So let's set that. Okay. So there's the way that the FPS thing works differently than it used to is before, if the frame rate came in faster than 33 FPS, it would just skip every other frame. That meant if you were receiving 40 FPS, you would get 20. If you were receiving 50, you would get 25. This But if you were receiving 35, you'd get like 17 and a half. That was lowering it more than it needs to. Some devices are just borderline being able to run at like 40 FPS. An example would be my Pro Strings. My devices, if I'm streaming to them at 40 FPS, the first 5 strings on them will work properly, and the sixth one will be a garbage mess because it never has time to get drawn to. Well, the new way the frame limiter works is it does frame pacing, which means it has a target FPS and a timer that runs. And if the milliseconds on a frame are quicker than it thinks it needs to be for that target frame, then it delays transmitting it to the lights by that many milliseconds until we wrap around to we're overlapping the next received one, and then we just skip that one and start the timer over. So the result is not only are we getting a locked frame rate of your target, but going to we're not going to jitter at it either. It's going to be smooth. I mean, as smooth as 20 FPS or 30 or whatever you said it at can be, but you get the idea. So that wraps up our deep dive into versions 3.14 and 15 and 15.1 of Artnet to Twinkly. From expanded protocol support to real-time editing, improved frame rate limiting, and Lightorama model compatibility, these updates bring serious power and polish to your lighting workflow. If you're upgrading or just exploring, these features are built to save time and eliminate your guesswork. Hit like if this helped, subscribe for more updates, and let me know in the comments what you'd love to see as a future feature. That's all from John. Have a nice day.